This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's pod. This is a show for the week of May 22nd, 2023. This week we're going to go over what we planned for last episode, but that was canceled due to a confluence of work, holidays, and all that other type of stuff. It took 3 years, Phil.
I know.
Just to get in the way. But we had to honor the mothers out there, so we couldn't really take away from Mother's Day. That being said, we're going to give our takes on recent Disney releases, Peter Pan and Wendy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, plus our takes on MCU movies and top 3 themed nights we want in Walt Disney World, and the DBC engagement on what is something you'd love to experience for the first time again in Walt Disney World. I suspect this is going to be an interesting conversation because I was thinking about it today, and I had like all the feels started like coming down in memories, and I'm like, it has to be this. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But first, Phil, we're going to welcome ourselves back, and we're going to find out what's going on in our Disney World, and hopefully we have a collection of news from like last week and a little bit of this week, and hopefully you'll learn something. But anyway, what's happening in our Disney World, Phil?
Yeah, so things that people are talking about. Probably the biggest one, there are a couple big news items that came out a few days ago. One of them was about the Galactic Starcruiser, the Star Wars hotel at Disney World. They announced they're going to be permanently closing it in September. So the final voyage will be September 28th through the 30th. And if you already had a trip scheduled for after that date, they're talking to you about rescheduling it for kind of in the summer, giving you a discount. But yeah, so we've had a lot of discussions about this concept, this cruise, this hotel, everything, and kind of like what would make it, at what price point would we do it? How would we change it up and stuff like that? And there seemed to be a lot of rumors going around that even Imagineers were in there, like trying to work on new storyline elements and stuff like that. But in the end, Disney just decided to just shut it down, close it. I have been seeing a lot of reports that they've been running like really empty, like really low capacity of late. And I guess they just figured rather than retooling it or trying, shorter voyages or something, they're just going to shut it down. And so what they basically said was, this is a quote from Disney: "It's one of our most creative projects ever. But it's a premium boutique experience, and it gave us the opportunity to try new things on a small scale of 100 rooms. And as we prepare for its final voyage, we will take what we've learned to create future experiences that can reach more of our guests and fans." So I thought there were some interesting elements in that they, they definitely recognized that this
big
was
hit in that statement.
Yeah, they definitely recognized it was too niche, I think. But
too expensive. That's
to a lot of things. But I guess they did kind of do it a bit as an experiment. But I'm not surprised that something's happening. I'm just surprised that they're not even trying to tweak it. They're just like, no, it's done.
I mean, we knew that this was going to happen, right? I mean, people were just waiting for this to fail. And I don't like anything that Disney does failing. There's definitely a crowd out there that loves cheering on the failure of Disney for whatever reason. By all accounts, this was an amazing experience. Nobody did this, left, and thought it was kind of Everybody raved about it.
Right.
The only issue was the cost, right?
Right.
And I kind of like that statement where they're saying reaching more guests. So, I mean, this is going to be tying into our DVC engagement for next week, but maybe we can talk about it now. Next week's DBC engagement is, what is the price point of some kind of experience like this? And we'll go into details about that later. But for me, I think we will see more of these experiences, but they're going to be more themed, smaller hotels. They're not going to be like 2 weeks of or 2 days worth of LARPing and shows and all this other stuff. But you might get like, I don't know, felt like I think it would be cool. Pick your IP princesses or Wreck-It Ralph or Big Heroes. I don't know. Pick something and live in that 100 room hotel for like whatever long you want. Double the cost of a moderate, but it's fully themed out, fully decked out. But you don't have like that many equity people. Like maybe you have the characters walking around or something like that. I think that's where they might go. What do you think?
It'll be interesting because for me it was the price, but it was also the immersion and the role playing and kind of how you had to like be kind of sort of extroverted and go out to like fully get the full experience. So I think there were a lot of people, and I've talked to other people kind of like me, that was a turnoff as well. But we would have loved to get to go do like dinner there or something like that. So I definitely think what they'll do is make it less like all encompassing, like this is the only option where you're sort of locked away for 2 days and you have to do this. There'll be elements of it, but there'll be kind of more choose your own adventure type thing. You want to do the dinner, fine, you pay for the dinner separate. It's not like you have to kind of do everything. So
I don't think the next experience is going to be where you have it's like a cruise itinerary where there's something for every single hour.
Yeah.
I could think of like let's call it like Beauty and the Beast, hotel experience, whatever they call it. Every night there's dinner in the ballroom with dancing and all that other stuff. But that's kind of like, think of like a really extravagant like wedding dinner, like with all the corny music and stuff like that. But I could see something like that, and then seeing the servants walk through the hotels, like how you imagine Star Wars Galaxy's Edge should have been with all the actors, or how it was promised. I can see that in hotel form, but you're paying a premium for your room, maybe an extra $150 a night. So like a moderate's $350 ish, 300 to 400. Maybe this is 400 to 550 a night. I can see somebody splashing part of their trip. Let's say Caribbean Beach Resort, $300 this summer. Maybe we just staying there for 6 nights. Maybe the first 2 nights I'm staying at a really cool themed hotel, and then I go over.
And you see that at some of the international parks, like in Japan or even in Hong Kong. Like they're very highly themed hotels, but they're not like this, voyage and stuff like that. And you can kind of choose to add on dinners at the fancy places, but you're not like, it's not part of your one-time fee type thing.
No, I mean, just imagine like, when I'm at Disney World, I want to go to the parks. I want to be, out and about and go into different restaurants and experiences, or just going on the monorail, those type of things. If I were at Disney World, I do not want to be stuck at my hotel for 2 days, even though this Starcruiser thing was a fully immersed experience. To me, I kind of want to do other things, right? Yeah. And I don't like the idea of having to be like stuck in this bubble, even though everybody loves the experience. But the idea of like staying at your Princess Castle or Gaston's Tavern, and you can go there, or the Rapunzel Tavern, or like kind of cool things like that are in any of these. Maybe it's a Marvel thing or a Star Wars, or like what, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah. But you can spend the day at the parks and then come back to your hotel early at like 6 or 7, and then experience your hotel for the next 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
That would be great, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Whether, like all those different IPs or something like, Society of Explorers and Adventurers or something like that, where it's more immersive and they have like really cool like bars and restaurants and stuff like that fit the theme, but it's more like a regular hotel. So I think hopefully they take elements of that people liked and worked with it. And then also I hope they bring some of the existing technology they built for that and bring it into Galaxy's Edge, because it kind of felt like some of that stuff was supposed to be in Galaxy's Edge to begin with.
Yep.
And then they put it behind the kind of the paywall of the Starcruiser. So, I mean, not everything, obviously, some of the elements were just for the Starcruiser, but whether it was the reputation thing or some stuff with the holocrons and things like that, maybe they can bring that into Galaxy's Edge.
I think Galaxy's Edge is baked until the ultimately expanded at some point in the next decade or so. Unfortunately, because I don't think you can easily take that out unless, because the most important thing, and not to belabor this topic any longer, but I think it's mostly like the paid actors and the atmosphere that you can bring to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah,
more stormtroopers, more cast members just going around pretending like they're in the lane, like more living.
Yeah, because I mentioned that when I had gone to Universal, that they had people like that in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. They weren't like characters from the books or anything, but they were, workers there, but playing a character they came up with that lived in that area, and they engaged with you that way. And I think if they added more people like that to Batu, that would help. And they had people like that on the Starcruiser, so they can definitely do that. Speaking of things that Disney canceled, the other thing they announced that they're canceling is the Lake Nona project. That was where they were going to bring all of the Imagineering headquarters and build this new facility that was going to cost about $1 billion in Lake Nona, which is outside of Orlando. And it was also going to bring, there's a lot of other sort of back office and just other groups that were in various spots around the Orlando area. They were all going to be concentrated in this one area, but obviously the big thing was Imagineering coming out from the West Coast. And that led to a lot of issues where a lot of Imagineers didn't want to come to Florida and wound up leaving the company. Then other people had come out, but now that they're canceled, or the Lake Nona project's canceled, it's, what's going to happen to them. So kind of a big mess. This was a big move, a big thing that, in the long run was going to save money because it would have concentrated areas. But now they backed off on that. There had been rumors that it seemed to be stalled a little bit. It wasn't going as quick as it had been for a while. But there's also some interesting timing in this, which this comes about a week after the quarterly earnings, at which, Bob Iger said some comments directly, at the governor of Florida, basically saying that, he's attacking Disney for their, infringing on their right to free speech. And, he ended his comment basically saying, does the state want us to invest more, employ more people, and pay more taxes or not in Florida? And, a week later, they announced they're not going to be building $1 billion facility down there. So I have to feel like the timing is at least not a coincidence.
No, I mean, a couple things. One, this is, I guarantee you this was still up in the air whether they're going to do this or not, regardless of the political mess that's going on down there.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I gave Iger a perfect, even if it was, they were going to cancel it regardless, gave Iger a perfect political kind of.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
Piece,
at a
right?
minimum, I think the timing was not a coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, this is unfortunate because I was really looking forward to finally Imagineering being at home base at their own world's biggest and most successful theme park in the world, rather than Disneyland getting all the goodies. Maybe hopefully that would have been focused more on Disney World. So I'm kind of disappointed with that. And it's unfortunate with all this back and forth, the loss of talent and the disruption in people's lives, which really stinks. Yeah. But hopefully Disney takes care of their people. So we'll see. Maybe some of the more talented Imagineers come back now that everything's going to be in California.
Yeah,
who knows?
Definitely. I saw a lot of, the Imagineers that I do follow on social media and stuff that some of them had left because of this. We're definitely like, commenting and posting, like, everyone's reaching out like, hey, are you coming back now and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. It was definitely handled poorly to begin with. Yeah. In this day and age of technology, you don't need to force people to move, across the country. And, it is asking people to move from certainly one very political state to a very different political different state, and which was not really great. So I think
the only thing I will say, I'm a big proponent of work from home. I work from home myself. When it comes to creative endeavors, it certainly does help being in one central area. So if you're a creative person and an engineer or whatever, it helps being able. I mean, that's the one thing. That's the one caveat I always kind of lay out there.
I mean, there's definitely benefits to it, and I think that would have been a benefit of this. And selfishly, I had the same view as you. It would have been nice to have more Imagineers in Walt Disney World more often. But I think they could have worked around it, and I guess that's what they'll have to do now.
Yep.
And the last item that's involving removing or canceling things is that Disney announced at the quarterly earnings, they will be removing content from Disney Plus. There's quite a lot in the earnings about streaming and Disney Plus in general. But one of the elements is that they're going to be removing a lot of content, kind of stuff that's been around for a little bit, shows that maybe, didn't get renewed and stuff like that. Basically, so they don't have to pay residuals to the actors and the writers and stuff like that from these shows. And I guess some of it, theoretically, they could license out to other streaming services if they wanted to. But I guess we'll see what they are. I think Vulture had a pretty thorough list of things. I don't know if you went through any of them or if there's any shows you're really missing. I know some stuff that like my family watched. The Mysterious Benedict Society was a show we liked. So we're going to have to make sure we get finished watching the second season before it's gone. My son really liked The Mighty Ducks TV show the new one was out. And then I know a lot of people are a little bummed that the Harmonious Live is one of the things that's going to be leaving, which is a little bit of a bummer because it was not, I kind of feel like it would be great to have Disney Plus as like a place, all these parks specific viewing things, kind of like a database for all that stuff.
I would love that. That's the only thing I'm disappointed is going. I mean, there's Mysterious Benedict Society. We watched the first season of that. It didn't really grip my kids. They were kind of scared of it a little bit.
Yeah.
The Real Right Stuff I remember watching. I like that one. But the rest was things I put on for a little bit, like Earth to Ned. I really liked watching that, but I never really came back to watch it. Right, it wasn't gripping enough where I'm like, I got to come back. So, I mean, I understand why they're removing it. What I don't understand, or kind of maybe I guess I half understand, is the removing of Harmonious Live. It was such a wonderful, produced show.
Yes, it was very well. Like, whatever you think of the show and, the barges and stuff in Epcot, the show itself was very well done.
I mean, I don't think anybody says the show was terrible as long as you were standing in the right spot. Right. But I think a lot of the hate for the barges tinted that, but still it was a spectacle and it was a great one. That's the only thing I'm kind of, angry, or no, not angry, disappointed with Disney Plus is there's not more parks content.
Yeah.
On that platform. And I think that's gotta be cheap content to make, right? It's, streamers do it every day. It's just a little bit more of Disney production. So that's the only thing I'm kind of sad seeing that's going, because not that I'm particularly sad about not having Harmonious Live on there. There's plenty of ways to access that material. It's strictly that they don't think that the platform is where they're going to store a lot of that stuff. So that means in the future, there's not going to be a lot of parks content on there because obviously that's not what it's built to do.
Exactly. So
we'll see. I have another take now that we've talked about three things that Disney's kind of like taking things away and canceling and all this other stuff, is from now until the end of September, when the fiscal year ends, this is just the year of Disney cuts. Mm-hmm. They're taking all this time to get their house in order, right the ship, cancel all these boondoggles. Now, I don't know if it's Iger approved a Starcruiser, or it was Chapek as president of.
It was definitely at least announced and like committed to during Iger, before Iger left initially.
Right. But it might have been like a Chapek thing that he pushed, and Iger said, "Okay, go ahead, do it."
Okay.
Right? I don't know how low Iger gets in developing these things. Right? He is the CEO of a massive corporation, but Chapek was in charge of this division, so he had hands on all this stuff. Right?
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, this is a massive boondoggle. They just went through a whole period of raising prices, increasing this, and just looking nickel and diming, super, super expensive. And again, that key word about making it more available to more people, or however he phrased it. Anyway, so this whole year is going to be the year of cuts. They're going to wipe everything out, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're not going to spend any more money this year, right? They're just basically cutting everything to the bone. And then starting in October is when they probably will start ramping up spending. So they're going to make all the hard decisions now, and then slowly put in money starting in October, I think that's kind of their corporate plan, so to speak.
I think that makes sense, then try to get, Epcot finished up and try to and open, and get Tiana's open as soon as they can. And like we talked about in our last episode, they announced, things like the dining plan and getting rid of reservations and stuff like that. I think that all takes effect January 9th. So I think it's really the theme of like 2024 is going to be like back to normal, or back to the Disney you missed, or whatever it's going to be, like kind of like you said, stop with the cuttings, let's reset things, and then let's look forward.
And I think also they're going to, all the construction that's going on, rather than playing like what quarter do we put this in so we can make a corporate accounting look better, I think they're like, dump all the money into Epcot, dump all the money into Tiana's. Let's wrap up all the construction walls before we start building new ones, because they have to build more stuff, and they are. I think they want like probably maybe 5 to 6 months of like no construction walls on property before they actually start building more stuff.
Yeah,
I think. So that's my take. I don't think we're going to get a lot of good news until D23, which is going to basically push into Disney's new fiscal year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good timing point too, because with D23, that's in early September. So that's probably when they'll announce a lot of new things too. So that makes sense. So I think we're almost 20 minutes in. So yeah, I had a couple of things more about like the earnings and stuff like that, but that was kind of a week and a half ago. So I think we'll call that for the news. A reminder of our social media. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at the DBC Pod. Of course, our Discord server, and I did want to welcome a new member to the Discord server, Alara. Welcome. I hope I'm saying your name right. And I did also want to mention that Matt did a bit of an audit to the Disney Comeback Index last week, and he has finally settled that we are currently at 95.21% back to compared to where we were before COVID. And it also just a shout out to their latest episode of the Happily Everything Disney podcast. They went over 15 things that still haven't come back, and they talked about whether they think they will eventually come back or if they are permanently gone. So I thought it was an interesting discussion.
I have a lot of plane travel in the next couple of days, which I'll be saving that for that travel. So I'm looking forward to it. I see in the show notes we have a bunch of other topics for the dining plan and Genie Plus. Are we skipping over those?
I think we'll skip those. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, very good. Okay, so movie reviews. So I was excited to talk about this last weekend because we had both recently watched Peter Pan and Wendy, and I had 2 weeks ago I had given my quick opinion on that. We both went to go see Guardians on opening weekend. I think we both enjoyed that movie quite a bit. So we're going to talk about all those things. But first, Phil, since I gave my quick take on Peter Pan and Wendy, what were your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, so we watched it, and I think, we've talked in the past. I've generally not been the biggest fan of these live action remakes. I thought it was good, quite good. It was enjoyable. I think it was a perfect addition to Disney Plus. I don't think it's something that necessarily warranted a theatrical release.
True.
I thought it was, some of the things they switched up. I really enjoyed how they they switched up Tiger Lily's role. I liked how they didn't make Tinkerbell super jealous of Wendy and stuff like that. I think they hit a lot of the key elements I thought were good. And they expanded a little bit on the backstory between Peter Pan and Hook and stuff, which I think was nice.
Those were my two things I really enjoyed. Was the Peter Pan and Hook backstory, which I never read the actual story that it was based off of. So that caught me by surprise, and I thought that was really, really cool. I wish they actually expanded on that a little bit more, but if there ever going to be a sequel, maybe that's that, but I doubt there's going to be a sequel. I really, really liked how that jealousy aspect between Tink and Wendy was not there, which is classic women fighting over a guy, blah, 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 blah. It's like they were friends and they were there for each other, and how Wendy started understanding Tink at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool touch. And just like you said, I think it was perfect for Disney Plus. I think if I went to the theater and spent $50 to take my family to go see it, I would have been like, all right. But at home on the couch with popcorn and everything else, it was absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend people to watch it.
The kind of the negative I see, the biggest negative I had, I think it was with Neverland itself. It just didn't feel as kind of fanciful and magical as in other tellings of this story. It looked like a neat island off the British coast or something like that, and that would be fun to run around and have forts and stuff, but it didn't take it to that next level where it really sort of when I'm thinking back to other even live action tellings like Hook and things like that, where it had where they just, once he believed, they had the food fights and things like that where the food would just appear, and it was missing a lot of that sort of charm and of the island itself. So that was sort of the big thing that I felt was missing compared to kind of the feelings you get from old other versions of the show.
That was the one thing that did surprise me, because you never really got to see the island at all. It was like they got there, they got shot at, they went into their tower hideaway, and then there was the scene in the cave that's from the movie and everything else like that. And then, that was it, basically. The rest was fighting on the ship, rescuing Peter Pan, or rescuing the Lost Boys, flying the ship up, blah, 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 blah. And
there's a lot on the ship.
Yeah. That was like half the movie. But in the animated movie, you kind of got tour of the island.
Yeah.
You got to see them have fun on the island before some of the bad stuff happened.
Exactly.
It was action the whole way through, and it was just oh no, we gotta save the day type of thing. There was no fanciful play at all.
Yeah,
Once
that's
they
a good
arrived.
way of putting it. Yeah, I think that was a bit, and that's to me a big charm of the original movie, is that playing aspect and like being kids and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I felt like that was missing a little bit. But
They could have easily added a 10-minute sequence, like as they arrived, like the next day after they
Yeah.
kind of fell asleep and they were just playing like some game that they always play. And the Wendy and the boys could like, what are the rules to this game? You see them fumbling and trying to figure it out as they go along, and it's kind of fun. And then something
Yeah.
happens, right? And that would have added quite a bit, but unfortunately, we didn't get it.
Right. But overall, I think it was one of the better live actions. It felt different enough that it was kind of worth a watch versus it wasn't just a shot for shot remake of it. So yeah, it's not, nothing that's going to change my life or anything like that. But I think it's worth a watch if you're looking for something you haven't seen yet. It's on Disney Plus. Just turn it on and, on a rainy afternoon or something. And I think you'll enjoy it.
And you know for sure that Disney's not taking it off Disney Plus anytime soon, at least.
Right.
All right, on to the bigger one, Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep.
So you've got numbers here. Are those the latest numbers?
So this is just from opening weekend, because people were wondering about how it would do and stuff like that. Because generally Marvel movies haven't been doing as well as they had in the past. And it's like, are people just getting tired of them, or is it something about them specifically? So globally, it opened to just shy of $290 million, beating projections by about 30 million. The U.S. was about in line with estimates, so it just did a little bit better abroad. And the last number I see, because I haven't seen the final tally for this weekend, but it was a little bit over 550 million total globally. So it's doing pretty well. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's going to be like back in the day when things were doing, like what did Endgame and stuff like that was doing, like $2 billion. It's not going to be anything like that. But I think it'll do better than, like Quantum Mania and stuff like that has done recently.
According to boxofficemojo.com, worldwide right now is 659.
Okay.
Compared to 1.2 of Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you an idea. You know what? Honestly, this movie's had legs. It's probably the best release of all of Phase 4 and Phase 5 combined, if I
movies, yeah,
correctly.
I think so. Yeah.
Movie-wise. Now, the movie itself...
Yeah, unless you keep, I guess Spider-Man maybe did better, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's a little bit
Spider-Man.
different.
Yeah. Yep. So, movie-wise, did you like the plot? What stood out to you from let me get your take. What is your top overall take for the movie itself, and maybe capping the series, and then the MCU overall?
Yep. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was definitely one of the best Marvel movies in a long time. I love these characters, and I think they stayed true to themselves, but still also showed, evolution to the characters. There's quite a few emotional moments in the film, because you've gotten to know these characters over a while and you're learning more about them. And then, the ending and what happens. And it's, I don't want to give spoilers away, but, there was emotion at the end, but it was different than what I was expecting kind of to happen at the end, which I think is a good thing. I thought it was a really good capper on the show. I mean, I think the James Gunn talked about, like, the first movie was the relationship between son and or yourself and your mother, and the second one is between yourself and your father, and this one is supposed to be like you and yourself and love for yourself. So I thought it was really well done. I don't know how much. I mean, it's just it mixed in enough humor. I was comparing it a lot to, like, why did this work, but Thor: Love and Thunder didn't? And I feel like this worked because the humor was an appropriate amount. And the characters who were supposed to be serious in a moment stayed serious.
Well, the characters kept themselves serious. I mean, the more Thors that come out, the more and more it's like they're caricatures of themselves.
Right.
Where the Guardians of the Galaxy characters, they remain serious and within their scope of who they are as a character. Right. There's a character arc that didn't exponentially get something goofier, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just
right. It's like Thor was serious in Ragnarok, and other crazy things happened to him. But in Love and Thunder, he was the one cracking jokes in serious moments and stuff like that. And it just killed all the serious elements of it. Where I feel like this gave all those moments room to breathe and stuff like that. But then still had other moments that were definitely a lot of fun as well.
I can't avoid some of my opinions without spoilers. Yeah. So spoiler now. I'm going to pause. We're gonna wait. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Okay, so spoilers. Um, I really, really enjoyed um, the fact that nobody died, right?
Yep.
Because they did a really good job with the trailer, and it's just like, they're carrying, Star Lord's body. They're like looking at, and then all of a sudden, like throughout the movie, like, oh, think somebody's gonna die, and then I'm just expecting every scene one of the main characters is gonna die, because they're
Yeah.
not doing another movie together, right?
Right, and a number of the actors are just like I know Dave Bautista said like he's not doing Drax again, and
Right.
stuff like a couple of them said that, so you're like, oh well, they're definitely going to kill them off then, right? Yeah, but
So
they didn't, so I was very surprised.
yeah, I applaud James Gunn for not going down the road of like, oh well, the actor never wants to do it, so I get to really kill this character in a really cool scene, but he didn't. But he was like, this is the perfect way to subvert the audience's expectations. Hint, hint, Rian Johnson of the last Jedi. It's just, you were expecting big moments where somebody was going to die and there's going to be a big emotional scene, but they kept rescuing themselves. Like Drax takes how many shots to like the head and the body and keeps on ticking, which is great. The second point I really liked what they did was the relationship between Star-Lord and Gamora. They didn't take the opportunity to like have them fall back in love and everything.
No, it's great that
again.
at the end he learned this wasn't the Gamora he fell in love with. This was a different person, and it wouldn't have felt right to get back with her. And they kind of came to an understanding, a friendship or whatever. But it was, I very much thought that was the appropriate take.
And also Gamora goes back to what she perceives as her family. And maybe she's grown a bit as a character. Maybe we'll see her again down the road.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it's not like you're thinking, oh, is she going to be in part of the next Guardians? Is she going to come and try to be, Peter's friend again on Earth? No, she's fine with herself. And we just kind of put an end to that whole speculation. And it could have been a real cheesy way of writing into a romance in the movie, or the re-falling in love, or no. This is it. You don't get what you want out of it, which I thought is really, really good. Again, another way to subvert the audience's expectations, and I think,
and that one's really a really interesting situation, because Gamora got killed in Infinity War and Endgame. It wasn't in a Guardians film, and James Gunn didn't want her to die. Like, that was the Russo brothers and stuff. So he had to like kind of change his storyline to fit something that happened to
it's probably better too.
I think in the end it worked out well, but it wasn't necessarily the plan to begin with.
Some of the other things I really liked, I liked I like how they did like just the weird like mutation things on the what is it called, the alternate Earth? Is it alternate Earth?
Oh yeah, was it alternate Earth or whatever it was called?
Just the animal people. I thought that was hilarious. The High Evolutionary and his whole plot line, I'm happy they didn't make him like an all-knowing, all-powerful person that just happened to like get defeated by luck.
Mm-hmm.
He was a flawed individual. You can see he was unstable. The way they wove in flashbacks with the current story, hint, hint to whoever made Boba Fett, this is how you do that.
Exactly.
It worked out perfectly. So you saw not only Rocket's flaws and his brilliance side by side, but you saw the master villain with his flaws and his brilliance. But when he ultimately lost, you can see why, because of his hubris and everything else. It wasn't just like, oh, we tricked him and we won. It was like, no, he failed because this was part of his character flaws.
Yeah.
And I really liked the way it wasn't like, okay, we're just going to mark off that MCU supervillain. We've used that guy up and he went to waste. Because I don't think he did. The one thing that I don't know much about is Adam Warlock.
Mm-hmm.
And I know periphery stuff. I never read any of these comics. It was an interesting plot line where he is now this infant type of demigod type character that's now a Guardian. So Phil, I want to ask you, where do you think this is going to be our screen crush moment here. What do you think is the future of the Guardians of the Galaxy moving forward? And then followed up, what is the future of Star-Lord and his character? Because obviously he will return because the movie told us so.
Yeah. I think they left it off with so many questions because even, what happens to Mantis? She went off on her own too. Like, do we get like a Mantis, story or something? I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do with the Guardians, because they do have some powerful figures in there now. And Adam Warlock, I think it wasn't necessarily a complaint, but I did hear some people said like he wasn't as fleshed out. But I think that's because this wasn't his movie, right?
Yeah.
He was used in it, and I do hope we get an Adam Warlock movie, or whether Guardians 4 or whatever is more of him, because he's a really interesting character. They changed him a lot from the comics, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. But I thought it was a very interesting character, like you said. Like they took him out of his incubator too early, so he wasn't fully developed, and he's still kind of learning as he goes, and doesn't necessarily know his own strength and stuff like that. So he's an interesting character that I definitely would like to see more of. Whether maybe they do a Disney Plus show or something like that.
Before we get to Star-Lord, let me ask you this. So that if I'm assuming there has to be another Guardians of the Galaxy movie at some point down the road, do they call it Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 4, or do they change the title? Is it just, I feel like they can't just make it number 4. They have to.
I think it'll be something
else.
different, especially because, unless something drastic changes, James Gunn won't be directing it because he's now leading the DC studios. So that makes me wonder if it will be an actual Guardians of the Galaxy movie, or maybe there would be a Disney Plus show that's, kind of a different tone and that sort of thing. Or maybe they just appear in, the next Avengers movie or something like that. But I don't think there will be a Volume 4, because I think the lineup has changed too much, and it's not James Gunn. So let's just put a pin in it. This is a pretty perfect trilogy as far as like, action adventure superhero trilogies go, and let's just leave well enough alone and do something completely different.
It's not often where you get the consistency where the first of the trilogy and the third of the trilogy are equal in quality, and if not better as the series went on, which I have to applaud James Gunn for doing that. So what is next in line for Star-Lord? I don't know. This is the most like speculation we've done on the MCU in any one of our shows, but it's a good topic, I think.
I honestly don't know, and I think that's kind of fun. Like, again, I think he could show up in the next Avengers movie or something like that. It's an interesting situation where he's on Earth, and I keep thinking there's more to that scene than there probably is, because he kind of asks about the neighbor, and his grandfather's like, it's a whole big thing, you don't want me to hear it. I'm like, oh, maybe there's like something up with that, and they're like superheroes too or something, but it's probably not. It's probably just like some like mundane thing. But he's not going to be content to being there for living the rest of his life there. He's going to want to go back out on adventures and stuff like that. So maybe he does like more of a solo movie, more of like a Buck Rogers type movie or something.
Is his next adventure take place on Earth, or does he go back out to space?
I think he goes back out to space.
Okay, so I'm just maybe there's a tease in the Marvels movie that are coming out, because that's the next space-ish one.
Yeah,
that's going out. All right, we're gonna wrap up the Guardians and MCU talk. That might be boring a lot of you out there, but I certainly enjoyed it. Unless you want to throw anything else out there, because
I just put that last
MCU films right here.
Yeah, I just said the last question here is like, what was your favorite, or what do you think is the best Marvel trilogy? Thinking of characters that had 3 movies. So there's Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Ant-Man, and now Guardians of the Galaxy have each had 3 movies. Which of those is?
Which it's interesting you gave me this, because obviously Avengers is not really a trilogy, so you can't really say that. I want to say Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think Captain America is absolutely phenomenal, and I don't think you can get better than like Civil War. I think that was like a pivotal moment in MCU history for something like that. And unfortunately, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 got lost in the Phase 4, Phase 5, blah, where it's not very impactful for the characters, because everything already happened. No one knows what's happening. I don't know if anybody cares what's happening at this point. So it might get lost in that. So I have to give the tip of the cap to Captain America. What about you?
So I think the Captain America ones are the 3, like the best 3 movies. The only reason I would if I had to give it to like a trilogy kind of in a vacuum, I would give it to Guardians of the Galaxy, just because some of the Captain America movies were basically Avengers movies.
True.
Like Winter Soldier
True.
and Civil War weren't really just Captain America, whereas the Guardians of the Galaxy ones really just focused on the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm with you on that. Okay, our takes this week are underrated, overrated, properly rated MCU films. Let's kick this off because I want to get to our DBC engagement, and we don't want to waste too much more time on going back and forth on MCU. So we'll do this quickly. So my overrated one is Black Panther. I think this is overrated because, as wonderful as the film was, it's really good. I'm the second Black Panther movie kind of shadows the first, and I know all the troubles and actor passing away and all this other stuff, but people think it's like one of the best MCU films. I thought it was great, but I don't really see it as like amazingly impactful in the overall storyline. So I think people put a lot of importance on it. I personally don't. I know it's very impactful in the African American community and seeing that. So in that sense, I hesitate by saying overrated, but I'm just looking as like a comic book movie. To me, it's over. Even though it's a wonderful film, it's one of the best. I think it's overrated.
Yep.
What about you?
So I guess just on Black Panther, I kind of get what you're saying, because it didn't, when you're comparing it to something like Infinity War or something like that, like it's definitely not at that level. I think for
or
like
Captain America Civil War, right?
Yeah. But I think it's like kind of a standalone, just about this character, his origin and stuff like that. I think it's one of the best. So personally, I would probably put that as more properly rated, but I do kind of get where you're coming from a little bit.
I'm calling it because most of the times I see the reaction of Black Panther is one of the best MCU movies, and that's where I say it's overrated because I don't think it's one of the best. I think it's one tier down. It's not S plus, it's S or whatever way you want to tier things.
Well, and that's a good setup for mine, because I think mine's the exact same argument, just for a different film, which is Winter Soldier. Again, I think it's a very good movie, but to me, it's kind of on that second tier, or it's a top 10 for sure. But a lot of people have it as like their number one, or certainly in their top 3.
Right.
And
I agree with you on this one.
Yeah, I think it's more like 8, 9, 10, like in that range, something like that. So kind of the same reason I think you have that. It's very good. It's just, to me, it's not top tier.
Yeah, no comment, because I agree with you 100%. My properly rated one is Captain America Civil War. And I'm not going to go over because we just talked about it. I think it's almost like an Avengers movie, and everybody's like geeked up about it.
Yeah.
It really started kicking off the back half of the MCU through Endgame, and I think everybody loves it. Everybody rates it extremely high, and I think that's an agreeable position. I think the hype for it is not too high, and I don't think anybody really hates it either.
Right. So my properly rater is Thor Ragnarok, because I think everything kind of came together for that movie, with the visuals and kind of the evolution of the character and adding some humor, but him still kind of being that fish out of water element. And I think that's how people view it. They don't, I don't think that many people have it like as their number one overall, but most people view it as like one of the better kind of phase 3 later movies. And that's where I think it belongs. So I think it's, kind of an epitome of like the next evolution of Marvel movies. And so I think that's where people see it. So I think that's probably.
I think that's a good pick, actually. Because I don't think nobody rags on it, but no one puts it on a pedestal either. It's just like one of the better Marvel movies that isn't an Avengers or Endgame saga type of movie. All right, so I'm going to go over my underrated. I've only seen this movie once, and I was disappointed with it at the time because I was confused with it. But over time, the more I've thought about it, the more I think it's underrated, and that is Black Widow. The downfall of Black Widow is obviously the timing of its release. Regardless if it's movies or Disney Plus, don't really care about that argument. It took place prior to Endgame. So we were going through, because of COVID and everything else, we got all these different movies out of sequence with the rest of the story. We had Endgame fatigue, right? We wanted to see the story progress and get to the next level, and this kind of just dragged it back, right? Like, ultimately, if you put all the Marvel movies in chronological order in one giant superfan cut, which is out there, and I think it's about 55 hours long. This is an excellent story about Black Widow. It adds a lot of depth to her character. It introduces some really cool characters along the way. It showcases her sister and that relationship, which is budding in the MCU Disney Plus series that we'll probably eventually see her again on the big screen with Thunderbolts and all that other stuff. So I think it lays the groundwork. I could see why it was Kevin Feige really wanted this movie to come out in the theaters and showcase it, because it is setting up characters for whatever path they were taking to Thunderbolts ahead. So I think that, to me, that's why it's underrated. And I think it just got kind of swept under the rug, so to speak, in matter of importance, because a lot of other stuff was happening at the time.
Am I underrated? I couldn't decide between these two. So real quick, I put Infinity War, not because people don't like it, but I like it better than Endgame, and I think most people
that's
don't.
A take.
Yeah, so that's why I put, in my mind, it's a little underrated, because I think it's even better than Endgame. I think it's just a tighter story. Obviously, the final battle in Endgame is awesome, though. But
Yes.
and the other underrated one, I think, is Doctor Strange. The first one, I think it's just a really tight origin story and done really well, and introduces this character that, this isn't Spider-Man that everyone knows. Like, not a lot of people know who Doctor Strange is, and I think it did a really good job of introducing him, and it's well acted, and I think it's just, I don't think it quite gets the credit it deserves.
I almost put Doctor Strange for this because I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah.
And it's a great origin story. It has a little taste of the Infinity Saga, so you got a little Infinity Stones in there, that type of thing. But then it's fully encapsulated in its own right.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't really bleed over. And this is where we're still at the point where we're trying to connect the dots into the Infinity War saga. We're introducing new characters, so we weren't like, here's another character we're introducing in an origin story. Here's another one, which we've been kind of buzzing through in Phase 4 and Phase 5. So, no, I totally agree, because its place in time, I don't want to say it was perfect, but was darn near close to introducing a pivotal character
that turned out to be quite pivotal. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so with that being said, we're going to go back to Disney World type stuff. And we mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to talk about our top 3 theme nights we'd like to see at Walt Disney World, because we're seeing all this stuff going on in Disneyland. They all get all the cool toys over there. So Disneyland just had their yesteryear Star Wars nights. We want to talk about what themes we want, because this was in the news 2 weeks ago. So this is why this popped up. But to kind of get back into the swing of things, Disney's accelerating a lot of their nighttime offerings around the parks, whether it's extra magic hours, extra ticketed events, not only just the parties, but at Hollywood Studios. And I think Epcot just had one.
So they've had it at Hollywood Studios, and they're adding it to Epcot. I forget if it just started, but it's going to be going through the summer.
Now, right? Yeah. And I think Disney realizes they can get an extra ticket purchase for the day if they start putting on some of this fun stuff. And theme nights is basically a party. So we want to see, what kind of party would you like to see that is in a Christmas or a Halloween party, or other than just the park is open later, right? So maybe they start saying the park is open later and it also has a cool theme to go with it. Right?
Exactly.
So if you're not going to spend the extra $150 a person to get in, or however expensive it is, just because you don't care about being there later, maybe this might get you to purchase that ticket, because it's also offering something different. So do you want to each give our 3 and comment, or do you want to go back and forth?
Yeah, why don't you do your 3 and then I'll do my 3.
Okay, so my first one is Toon Night. So I want to see the Fab Five walking around. I want to see all the old school cartoons and the extended family. Scrooge McDuck and the DuckTales characters, just open up the closet, bring out all the old costumes, and get everybody out there and just have a cartoon party. And I would love to see that. And I think you might even get some slightly older children to be able to stay up and to kind of do some of these things. I would keep my kids up later at night to see Mickey and Donald having fun and running around in the park, and not just on stage, but doing some other things, that type of thing. I think that would be really cool. I would love to see a Marvel night. I don't know if Disney World can do this. Maybe they're leading towards characters that they can use that are not in part of the agreement with Comcast. You know, outside of the only reason I put this because I would have put Star Wars Night here, but that was already taken by Disneyland. So I would like to see that, but I don't think it's ever going to happen in Disney World. And I would love an event at Animal Kingdom. Call it Night at the Zoo. A Night at the Zoo, just kind of like Night at the Museum type of movie, where you are in the park at night. Maybe the lights go off, that type of thing, and now the animals get loose. And you could use all sorts of things like the puppets that are around Christmas time, those type of things wandering around. You know, you could do any sorts of like costumes with characters, whether they're puppets or actual costumes where it looks like that, or maybe they're just shadows that kind of prowl and different noises and stuff like that. But you could the park is absolutely beautiful at night. It gets cooler at the end of the night also, and I think they can kind of do some really kind of fun things that keep people entertained just walking through the park with some refreshments and snacks and stuff like that. So those are my top 3 theme night ideas. Anything that you like? Because I don't think I stole anything from you.
Nope. So I mean, I think they're all good ideas. I mean, I definitely would like to see something at Animal Kingdom. I think that would be fun. And to your 2 night, it made me think maybe they could get a little bit more focused and do like a Disney afternoon night. So kind of all the old cartoons that used to be on in the Disney afternoon, whether it's DuckTales or Chippendales Rescue Rangers or Goof Troop and stuff like that, kind of focus it around that. I think it'd be fun.
Now you're thinking.
So my ideas, the first one would be to do a retro Epcot night event. So bring back a lot of the characters from, whether it's, Figment and Dreamfinder or Smart One. And, maybe could do the parade that went around and, the stuff like that. The pageantry one would be really cool. And maybe do, have Illuminations play as the fireworks show and stuff like that. Kind of just bring back a lot of the elements from the past of Epcot.
Nostalgia night.
Yeah, nostalgia night at Epcot, basically. The next one was, I think it would be great to do Star Wars at Walt Disney World. They used to do the Star Wars weekends where they would have celebrities come and stuff like that. And I think just doing that, but as a hard ticket event, would make a lot of sense. I think they could do that. They could, whether it's just in Galaxy's Edge or spread it out into all of Hollywood studios. I think they could still do a Star Wars event. And you saw what they did at Disneyland. They had a lot of photo ops and things like that. It wasn't, it wasn't anything they couldn't pull off in Hollywood studios.
Well, I mean, remember back in 19 where they had like the Star Wars March kind of down Hollywood Boulevard and everything else. They had plenty of stormtroopers and characters and that type of thing. Why not have Star Wars where you have that like every, let's say it's a 4-hour event, you do it twice, but those stormtroopers and all those characters that are in there just don't go backstage. They just disperse and wander the park. So now there's like 100, like I'm pretty sure you can hire about 100 or 2 501st guys to come in with their gear and play in Hollywood studios for like, a month. Like get guys rotating in and out. Yeah. I'm pretty sure plenty of people, because if there's plenty of people in Florida doing it, it's an after hours event. It's not like it's conflicting against your day job if they have a day job and not a night job, but it's, after hours, it starts at 6, 7, 8 o'clock and it runs for 3 hours and you get to run around in a stormtrooper, or heck, hire some local college students to run around and storm. I mean, I'm pretty sure we can find 200 people that can hire to be a stormtrooper. And then all the other cool costumes that they have and stuff like that. You could have, Galaxy's Edge could be the sequel trilogy. Maybe down towards Tower of Terror, you could have, the prequel trilogy characters down there. And maybe in front of the theater, you could have, original trilogy. I don't know. It doesn't make a difference, right? You can make up different areas. You can have all the characters mingle. It just could be really fun.
Yep.
And I'm totally running off with your idea. That's what I just realized that. But I had this one too. I really would love to see it.
And then my last one is called Royal Night, although I added the K. So K Night, like that Royal Night. Mm-hmm. And it would be focused on all the princes and the princesses and kind of just like that medieval royalty feel, like almost like a medieval times type setup or something like that, but really kind of, all the fanfare that goes with that, have like kind of royal fancy food all around. I was thinking, people could dress up, obviously, like almost like you're going to a Ren fair. You could have photo ops that like kind of make it look like you're royalty and stuff like that. So just kind of like a prince and princesses night. And I think that's another one that I think might appeal more to kids and stuff like that too, or, not just adults.
I mean, I'm totally into this, but like, how do you have an evening event where you're going to have a lot of little girls want to stay up to do it. It might be very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I'm all for it. My wife might be thinking I'm crazy to keep our 3-year-old daughter up late to kind of do that at this point. Or even when my oldest was that age, they always want to go to bed by 9 or 8 or 9 o'clock. These usually start at around 8 or 9 o'clock, depending when the park's closed. That might be. I think that'd be the only reason why they wouldn't do that. But it's a great idea. I don't think Disney would do it because I don't think. Well, they probably would do it. They'd probably get plenty of adults going around, but. I don't know if I want a princess night with just adults running around.
That's true. I mean, maybe they could do it where it's more often, but it's shorter, so it's and a little less expensive or something like that. It's almost
I think they should
find Princess
a way to
Hour or something like that. Yeah, where if you get a bracelet, you get to stay an extra hour in the park, and they have like extra princesses out and stuff like that.
I'm down for that. Absolutely. Any way I can get my kids to meet a bunch of princesses and not have to pay $300 at Akershus to do it, I'm all for it. But it probably would be more expensive. Anyway.
Yeah.
But whatever. Okay, cool. I like that one. All right, we're going to move on and cap out the show with this week's DBC engagement. And I really like this one. And I asked everybody on Discord, what is something you would love to experience for the first time again at Walt Disney World? I have a couple different answers here. Phil, do you want to go over ours and then the community, or do you want to talk about what the community said first?
Why don't we do the community first? Because some of their, like, once they got talking, it got me not changing, but made me think a little more broadly.
Okay.
So, going through some of the what the community said, we had Ryan W. who mentioned, he had a few. He mentioned the first time he got into the Grand Floridian or the Animal Kingdom's lobby, some of those big grand lobbies. His memory of eating the pork belly at Flying Fish. First time he rode Soarin', Big Thunder Mountain, Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror. Mamo6 mentioned that the first time they got to experience Enchanted Tales with Belle, which I could definitely echo. I mean, that's a cool experience, and especially if your kids get picked to play parts and stuff like that, that's definitely a core memory type thing. And let's see, the next one, Doxy mentioned about the first time her 9-year-old niece got to meet Winnie the Pooh all over again, and just when it's somebody who's their favorite character and they get to meet them in real life is very, very cool. Lumpy thought this was a great topic, but mentioned the first time he got to do Space Mountain was very memorable, just kind of that indoor coaster experience and that sort of thing. Let's see, what else did he have? I guess that was the main thing. Miss Gina 5 mentioned that she would love to, that first time seeing Happily Ever After, not having seen that before and kind of just getting the emotions of seeing that for the first time. So
my only comment on that one, I don't want to go back to the first time I saw Happily Ever After. I want to go back to the second time. I didn't realize how awesome the show was the first time until it was over. So I want to go back because I think the second time is when it was the most impactful for me, I think. I don't remember seeing it for the first time. I just remember seeing it for the second, the third, the fourth, fifth. Times. So those are really, really good. No one's mentioned anything that I want to go back to, with the exception of maybe Doxy touching on it. But Phil, did you said things changed, so you want to go first just with one of them? We'll go back and forth.
Yeah. So just when people brought up like their kids and the experience with their kids, I was thinking more just selfishly, I guess, myself, and like attractions and things like that. Like, what is something that kind of blew my mind the first time I got to experience it? And and I was also trying not to have recency bias, because I could say like getting to do Rise of the Resistance for the first time or Flight of Passage for the first time. What I settled on, and this is, I guess, in broad, and I was kind of thinking like, what if I could, somebody who's never been to Walt Disney World, maybe somebody who's in California, been to Disneyland, but never been to Walt Disney World. I would say the first time you get to experience Animal Kingdom, and specifically even just the safari, like the idea that exists, and there's this whole like park where you can just wander and get on a Jeep and giraffes are coming up to you. And I think that just kind of like blew me away. And it's something maybe I take for granted now that I've been there so many times. So if I had never got to experience that and then got to do it for the first time, excuse me, would be cool.
So one of the things that I remember is my first adult trip to Disney World. Our first park day, this is back in 2015, was to Animal Kingdom. That was my first park I went to on that first vacation. And I think back, and I think I took a lot of it for granted because I only had my childhood memories of Disney World, which was basically only Magic Kingdom at the time.
Right.
And I don't think I do that park the same as I did back then, because back then I was completely unprepared. I was in my sister's hands. I picked up a park map and I'm like, okay, where do we go from here? And exploring the park seems so much bigger the first time, and I'm totally with you on that. Doing attractions, I think I would love to be able to do Flight of Passage for the first time. Granted, the first time I did it was in 2019, so it wasn't that long ago that I got it for the first time. But I just remember doing it in 20 or last year was the next time I got a chance to do it, and the screen seemed a little fuzzier. Everything seemed a little bit more worn down. I don't know if I just got whatever. It's just like it was still amazing, but it was just like, all right, something's just
not there. It's not just you. The video needs to be updated.
Yeah. So one of my experiences, this one's completely selfish. But let me get one out of the way, and I think this is one that everybody can say is, going back to 2015 and watching my kids go through meeting the princesses, or my oldest daughter meeting the princesses, and all this stuff in 2015 and 2017 again, and kind of reliving their childhood wonder with all of that. I would love to experience that again. But more importantly, or not more importantly, more selfishly, is the excitement that I got from planning my first real big Disney World trip, right? The first time I planned a trip was in 2017, and I did all the research and everything else like that went well. But then leading up to our huge 9-night trip in 2019 and planning that out, where now I'm the pro, I know all the things, I don't have to do research and stuff like that, but it was hard planning, and we had family meetings, everybody was excited and all this other stuff. And it was absolutely wonderful. I wish I can go back to that time where I spent more time on message boards figuring out how to plan a Disney vacation, because all that's gone now. Because there's no more fast passes, there's no more long-term ADRs, there's no more magical. A lot of it's the day of that we keep talking about, right? I would love to go back and try to recapture that excitement about planning my Disney World trip again. Not that I'm not excited now, but it's more mechanical now. It's like, okay, we got to go. What parks are we going to go to? We don't have to worry about ADRs. We don't have to worry about fast pass pluses. Everything's done there. So we just have to pick our park days and think about what we want to do when we're there. It's more mechanical rather than the wonder of putting that puzzle together again.
Yeah.
There's a subtle difference, right? It's not like I hate planning a trip now, or I dislike it. It's that the novelty and the freshness of figuring it out is gone. Now it's just I'm that travel agent who's planned 500 Disney vacations in the last month, and I know how to do it now, type of thing.
Yeah.
Do you have another one?
So thinking about with my kids, this is a little having to go back in time though. So it'd be when they were younger, but I do remember the first time we did the whole big thing for them to meet Anna and Elsa, and just how, even my son at the time was really into it. And they were just like they couldn't believe their eyes that they were meeting Anna and Elsa and stuff like that. And that was also one of those, it ties into the whole planning thing where I got the pre-park opening ADR at Akershus, and we finished our meal, so we were first in line, and it was one of those things where all the planning kind of paid off in the end. Yeah. You got to see that, so it had that element too. So I was trying to think of there's a couple other just more specific things that happened. It's not really something you could really plan for. So I don't know. Those are that was the other one that came to mind, that when thinking about something I'd like to see for the first time through my kids' eyes again.
Yeah, I think living through my kids' eyes is probably the number one. But I want to go back to here I am dismissing my kids' memories. I want to go back to the planning thing. Honestly, I don't think it's nostalgia at this point, because a lot of the planning stuff is kind of gone. Disney planning now. Am I just being an old veteran now of Disney planning?
I think it's some of it's that where you don't need to you kind of have some plans already, the rough idea of how you're going to attack things. So some of it's definitely just your experience, that it's not as much discovery. But I do also think it just took longer because there were more of those moments, right? You had 180 days, you make your ADRs. At 60 days, you did your FET. There's not like those checkpoint or toll gates like there used to be.
I mean,
So it's
I
probably a
think,
combination of those things.
I think actually you just hit on it. And we definitely talked about this on a previous show numerous times. But like the idea of booking your trip, then you've got your 6-month mark, then you've got your 60-day mark, and then you got your magic bands at day 30. Like there was a progression on going to your Disney World trip. Now there's like you book your trip. Now the next trip that I book, I don't even have to do reservations at that point. I just got tickets,
Yeah.
and I won't have to do anything until I probably won't do anything because maybe order some magic. My kids have Magic Band Pluses. I still have my Magic Band that'll work. I don't have to do any of that. So it's just like we don't have to do anything until we figure out what parks we want to go to and whatever it might be. But it's
Yeah.
just be like,
So there's still the planning. I mean,
it's
I still have my
lost.
spreadsheet and I've gone back and forth on which days to do which thing, but it's just not the
Diminished.
same as when you have those like kind of toll gates.
Disney, listen, you need to get this back for super fans. You need to you're spending $1 billion to go there. Like Disney should like walk you through just even if it's just silly like mail that they send you. That's just like a piece of printed paper with like, you've got 100 days to go. Look at this. I mean, like they can totally make money doing that type of stuff. But I think they're failing to see that. In any case, this week's DBC engagement, all about the Starcruiser. And the question is, what is your price point for a fully immersive hotel experience? Like the Starcruiser, what is needed for that money? So like whatever your price point is, let's say it's $800 a night. Let's say it's $500 a night. Let's say it's $2,000 a night. What are you expecting for that money? So, I mean, we could have all sorts of ends of the spectrum where like, I don't even care about this type of experience. So you don't answer the question, I guess. Or it's like, I would only spend 30% premium of whatever band of hotel that I would have for this experience. Okay, so what do you want for that 30%, right? So what do you expect for that premium for your hotel experience? Do you need 24/7 entertainment? Do you need a controlled environment where like guests can't wander in? It's just whoever's at that hotel and that's it, and everybody's kind of playing a role. What IP or setting would get you really thinking like, so Star Wars, maybe Star Wars isn't your thing, and that's okay. Would it be princesses? Would it be Marvel? Would it be I don't know. Pick whatever Disney setting that you want, whether it's all princesses or one specific or whatever it might be. What do you guys want to say? Maybe it's a Simpsons hotel. I mean, that would be kind of weird, but it's a Disney property now. So yeah, fill that in on Discord, and if you haven't joined Discord, make sure you do. Want to welcome Laura. I'm about to send her a message that we're currently recording. We just gave her a shout out so she can feel welcome to the community. So hop into Discord, hop down into our content in the DBC podcast channel. If you can't find it, make sure you ask everybody in the general chat and they'll point you to the right place and join the conversation. All right, Phil, I think that wraps it up unless I forgot anything.
Nope, it's all good. We did a good one.
All right, I did my job today. I followed the instructions. With that being said, have a great week, everybody. Thank you for listening. Sorry that we missed you last week. But if you're a follower of Happily Everything Disney, Matt filled in with a really great episode, which I'll be listening to tomorrow. So that being said, take care, everybody, and have a good one.
Bye, all.